We begin in Ukraine, where cities across the country have faced some of the most intense missile strikes and nightly drone attacks since the beginning of Russia's full-scale invasion. The capital, Kyiv, was targeted at dawn this morning. So too Lviv in the west of the country. The Ukrainian military says most but not all of the missiles were intercepted. At the same time, Ukraine's military says it successfully managed to destroy 2 Russian landing ships and hit the main communications centre of Russia's Black Sea Fleet in occupied Crimea. Let's cross to Kyiv. Let's bring in Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent. Gulliver, tell us first about the Russian strikes and what you heard and saw today.
Well, myself, I heard a pretty loud explosion around 5 a.m, but I think it was the air defence working. They say that they shot down all of the 10 missiles that were headed for Kyiv, and there's no damage of any significance reported in the capital. Overall, though, according to the Ukrainian Air Force, there were some 29 missiles that were fired and about as many drones. They shot down most of the drones, and I think 18 out of the 29 missiles. So that means quite a significant number of them hit their targets, and once again it seems that the targets were mainly Ukraine's electricity infrastructure. It's a sort of second day, or second night rather, if you like, of a sustained attempt to do severe damage to the power generation and power distribution capacity, which has had terrible effects, particularly in Kharkiv, Ukraine's second city, which is heading for now 48 hours of really total blackout. And the authorities there say that all of the electricity substations have been significantly damaged and they don't know when they're going to be able to get the power back on again. And in other big cities, there are power cuts as well, in particular Kryvyi Rih in the southeast. They're going to be starting those rolling blackouts to try to stabilise the grid. There were also a lot of strikes on the west of the country early this morning. I think some more than 10 anyway, that hit Lviv region. Actually not Lviv city, but an area to the south of there where Naftogaz, Ukraine's state gas company, is saying that some of its infrastructure was damaged. Russian sources are suggesting that this was a highly strategic installation and that the damage is very severe. The Ukrainians aren't giving more details on that, but certainly a large number of missiles, including hypersonic Kinjal missiles, were used to target this area about an hour's drive south of Lviv, near the town of Stry. And I think that it's as part of that attack that this missile apparently crossed into Polish airspace. The Poles are saying this is the third time that this has happened since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine, and they've summoned the Russian ambassador for an explanation and say that they're going to take steps depending on what he has to say. I think now we can play a clip from the Polish defense minister, what he had to say about it.
All the strategic procedures were launched immediately, and the Polish and NATO F-16 fighters were activated. As last night's rocket attack on Ukraine was one of the most intense since the beginning of the Russian aggression, the object was monitored until it left the Polish airspace.
It's interesting, Gulliver, talking about, I think the Russian Defence Ministry today saying that they were targeting the energy stations. You mentioned Kryvyi Rih, very interesting as well, the former hometown of President Zelensky. Meanwhile, what's your understanding of how much damage Ukraine has inflicted on the Russian Black Sea Fleet?
Well, I mean, over the course of recent months, they've inflicted a huge amount of damage on the Black Sea Fleet, to the extent that they've been able to resume shipping in the Black Sea because the Russians don't pose a threat anymore. But the latest damage that they are claiming is to have sunk 2 landing ships in the port of Sebastopol and also done some damage to a Russian communication station in the city of Sebastopol in Crimea. There was also an explosion at an oil depot near there. Large number of explosions rang out today in Sebastopol. Russian sources are saying that civilian homes were also hit and that 1 civilian was killed. The Ukrainian campaign of targeting this Russian Black Sea Fleet has, been a source of some pride for them and certainly very effective in terms of freeing up the grain shipments. But its other purpose is to hamper the Russians' logistics in getting troops and supplies to their troops in southern Ukraine, Zaporizhia Oblast, Kherson Oblast, and the southern part of Donetsk Oblast. And in order to get around the problem of the ships constantly being destroyed or not being able to be used, the Russians have restored the railway going from Rostov-on-Don into Ukraine from there, which means that the impact of the destruction of these two landing ships, if it is confirmed, will be much less than it would have been a few weeks ago, because the Russians have now got a railway that they can use, and it's much harder to destroy a railway because you can destroy part of it, but it can be rebuilt pretty quickly.
Gulliver, thank you. Great context, as always. Gulliver Cragg, our correspondent in Kyiv.